How do?
Sam, how are we?
David. I'm going to ask the where you're from.
My name's David, I'm from Preston. Sunny Preston, us Lancashire lot.
Where you're from originally?
Liverpool originally.
You ain't getting away with that, mate.
Liverpool originally.
And why haven't you got a Scouse accent?
You know, I think I've done that much travelling around the country. You just lose your Scouse accent.
Have you lost it on purpose?
No, I haven't lost it on purpose. And no one from Liverpool stole it from me either, mate.
Oh. Red or blue?
100% blue.
Okay, we'll just leave that. I know not to get too involved. Being in a Manchester and Salford nick with Man U and Man City and Liverpool thing, we'll just leave it there, eh?
Yeah,
and
probably
Everton.
best. Probably best at the moment.
Right, who are you? Who are you, David? And why are we here? See what I've done there? There's a clue for you people wanting to start interviewing people. It saves all the prep.
Doesn't it just?
Yeah.
My name's David. I'm a prison leaver. I'm an ex-offender. And I went to prison quite a few times. Only on short sentences, comparative to most people. And the last time I got out, I set up a group, an organisation which we call Release Mates.
Can I just say?
Go on, yeah, I know you're going to say it anyway. Go on.
I did read this before and it sounds like a condom company to me. Release Mates.
There might be something in that. So what we do, yeah, we help people getting out of prison on the day they get the day they're released. We focus only on the day of release. There's plenty of other services out there.
Yep.
Following on from that, but we just focus on the immediate 5 to 8 hours post-release for people.
Can you just give people an idea what it's like getting out? You know, how you feel and things like that, and also explain like the probation stuff, because worst case scenario, lads have literally said to me, Mr. Samworth, I'm getting out, I've got to catch a train to Coventry and my appointment is at 2:30 with probation, and they're worried about missing that appointment and other things.
Yeah, so going back to what you mentioned at the beginning, how people feel when they get out. No matter whether you've been in prison for a week or for 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, there's a lot of emotions running round in your head on that day. Now, when you've been on the wing, the lads on that wing, the officers on that wing, they've become your family. They have become the people you rely on.
Screws?
Yeah, screws.
Okay, carry on.
Somehow, you know, I'll be fair, I met some great screws who helped me an awful lot. I met some horrible bastards as well, but...
Yep. But we always need to remember the great ones.
Yeah.
Or the good people. Who
Exactly,
help people,
and it is important.
Very much.
You know, there's a screw took me to my sister's funeral on my last sentence. And he, you know, I saw him the other day waving at me, genuinely happy to see me doing all right now.
Yep.
And I think it's people like that who need to be recognised.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the day you're getting out, you're full of emotion. You're excited, you're happy, you're joyous. And one thing that a lot of people forget about, every single prisoner in this country, when they're walking from the wing to reception, irrespective of the circumstances, is petrified about gate arrest. Everyone is 100% convinced in their head they're getting arrested at the gate.
Can I tell you a little story?
Go on.
So when I worked at Forest Bank,
Yeah.
well, two little stories, only short. I don't want to stop you mid-flight. When I was at Strangeways, we've had probably half a dozen people who got to the gate and refused to leave, as in go through it. Not for fear of gate arrest, didn't want to leave the jail,
Right.
because they were fearful. Most of them were given a little shove. One we actually had to restrain, had a proper fight to get them out onto the street.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and when I was at Forest Bank, gate arrest is police in it. If there's further charges, they know you're getting out, they'll be there. And at Forest Bank, this lad said, "Is there any coppers about, Mr. Samworth?" I said, "Quite possibly, are they for you?" He says, "Yeah." He was literally, you know, down on his haunches. He says that, "My kit, will you sort my kit?" I said, "I'll sort," and he were off. He were off, and through car park, up over the bank, and they were after him like, which was quite funny.
It's harsh, isn't it, Gator?
Yeah, it is.
It's not. No, there must be. There are better ways to deal with it, but it's one of them systemic failings in it. So, what we thought was, I mean, I've gotten out of prison and I've been let out of the prison gate, and that's it. I haven't got a clue. Now, as a prison leaver, I'm expecting a big fanfare, a big load of people there giving me a big round of applause for getting out.
Yeah.
But the world's just been going on without me.
Yeah.
And my family, friends.
Did anyone pick you up?
No, I was just.
Did anyone know you were getting out?
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way, because, you know, if you're working or whatever, then...
Everyone knew the day I was getting out, and I suppose I could have asked people to come and pick me up.
Yeah.
But I think what a prisoner builds up in their own head as being something massive, in the greater scheme of things, it's pretty minor, really. You're just getting out of prison to most people. So, shortly after I got out of prison, we were asked to... I'm in recovery from addiction, and I needed to keep my time filled. I needed to get a bit of volunteering done.
Alcohol or drugs?
I'll do anything, that makes me feel different.
So both?
Anything, yeah. I mean, mainly alcohol, but, you know, I dabbled in drugs as well.
Yeah.
And I think I needed something to fill my time in those first couple of months when I got out of prison. So the drug and alcohol team at the prison, they've got a little outbuilding at Preston Prison next to the gate, and they were redecorating it. Well, they weren't. They were asking me to redecorate it.
Oh, yeah.
So they said, well, you go along and paint this prison for a few hours. A few hours turned into a few months. But what we noticed, there were loads of lads getting out of prison who didn't have a clue where to go left, right.
Yep.
Didn't know how to get to the train station, didn't know how to get to the bus station.
People assume things like that, don't they? Sadly, you get people from all over, don't you?
Yeah.
In Preston Prison who ain't got a clue about Preston.
Yeah, and, you know, Preston's a Cat B local prison that... It's a reception prison that takes people from courts in Lancaster, up in Cumbria.
Yep.
And I'm fortunate. I'm one of them who I can read and write. I saw something last week that said 50% of people in prison can't read and write, or have the reading and writing capabilities of an 11-year-old.
I would think it's more than that.
So,
education-wise, sadly.
If you're an 11-year-old and you're leaving prison, you haven't got a cat in hell's chance, have you?
No.
So while we were painting the prison, a load of lads were coming up to us and asking us for help getting to the job centre, getting to probation, getting to the train. They didn't have any food. They'd been in on a recall, so they didn't get a discharge grant.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain just what a discharge... Is it still about 96 quid or is it 46 quid?
I think so. So it's gone up. I think it's around £76.40.
Okay.
Is what it is. 76.86, something like that. A discharge grant is the money you're given when you leave prison. So the purpose of it, I don't know. I think it's just to get you off to a start, but 96 quid ain't going to get anyone off to a start, is it?
No.
If you're recalled to prison and you're serving a short sentence, you don't get anything. You just get kicked out with nothing.
Okay.
So lads were coming up to us next to Preston Prison, and they were asking us for our help. But there were other services in the building that we were decorating.
Yep.
So there were drug and alcohol teams. The prison had a through the gate team in there. There were various... Probation had someone in there.
Remind me what through the gate is.
So through the gate, basically, is supposed to transition people from custody into the community and help through.
Is it part of the resettlement programme then?
It's meant to be, yeah.
Okay.
It's meant to be. And on that day when people were getting out, they were coming to us rather than the recognised services. And I think that boiled down to they knew that we'd been in prison. We were relatable. We could speak their language. And they started asking us for help.
Just explain, I'm sorry to, but just so people understand, when you say speak their language, again, tell me what you mean. I know what you mean.
I think it's as simple as someone getting out of prison, a service will turn around and say, hello, can I help you with something? Whereas I'd turn around and go, all right, bro, how's it going, mate? You all right? And I'd recognise what that person needs in that moment because I've been there before.
It's quite obvious, isn't it? When,
yeah.
To you, if you saw 20 people and I said to you, right, who's just left, but you'd know, wouldn't you?
And I think that sticks with you. I think the lads knew that we'd been inside. We obviously knew they'd been inside.
Yep.
And that ultimately, you must know this yourself from inside, that there's that indescribable bond, isn't there, between people who've been in prison. There's like
people
a
make
prisoner's
friends
code.
in prison, yeah, of course
exactly. So we made something of it. We decided to set up our own service, which we've called Release Mates, which is not a condom. You got my mind ticking over now.
I know, I'm sorry. It's stuck there now, isn't it?
And that's what we did. So we decided we were going to base ourselves at Preston Prison and meet lads getting out. And we originally just thought about going to churches, going to the Salvation Army, getting some food, getting some clothes for them,
yep,
and maybe pointing them in the right direction. And we started getting a bit of good feedback, and lads were coming back to see us after they'd been released. So we expanded the service a little bit, and we linked up with a local cafe and got a bit of money, got a bit of funding.
Oh yeah.
And got funding to be able to take every lad getting out of that prison for a brekkie.
Really?
Which was a big thing, so we could meet someone, we could diffuse the day of release anxiety.
Take a lot of anxiety. I'm imagining now, if I'm just getting out of prison, obviously I have got out of prison every single day when I work there, but sitting you down for a scran with somebody, sort of a friendly person or someone who understands what you're going through, really good.
And I think as we went along, we learnt a bit. So there were lads who were looking to dart off to the dealer, there were lads who were looking to go to the nearest off licence or the nearest pub. We learnt to separate lads as they were getting out of prison so they couldn't all go off together and score together. And our job was basically to try and get them off to the best possible start on the day of release. And that's what we set about doing. We then started getting referrals through from the prison so we could go in on legal visits to see lads before they were getting out.
Oh yeah.
We were able to plan the day of release for them. They knew who they were meeting on the day out.
In Preston Prison, were there specific people within that prison system, like governors or managers or prison officers, who said, about expanding your service or whatever? Where did that come from, and how user-friendly was Preston Prison? You know what I'm saying?
So,
it's quite difficult. It's all right having an idea, isn't it?
No, but I don't think Preston Prison came to us with ideas.
Yeah.
We had the idea, and then we had to go to them and see if we were allowed to do it.
But somebody's look at what you're doing and said, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, and that, credit to them for allowing ex-offenders to do that and allowing, because it's thinking outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, of course it is.
And hats off to them for acknowledging it and allowing us to do it. Word got round how it was working. It was working well. We were featured in a local newspaper and did a TV interview and whatever.
Have you been in Inside Times or anything like that?
No.
Right, Inside Times, guys, is a prison newspaper. You see what I'm thinking, me listening to you now, if they had the ability, or a businessman or somebody got behind you to expand, how good would that be if everyone getting released from prison in England and Wales and even Scotland, even though they're not part of the, if that sort of grew, as it were.
There's a long-term goal, because what was just a little project to keep a few guys out of trouble, has now become a business. Or a service, or whatever it's become a recognised service, and we've had to go through certain things. As soon as we had Preston up and running, we got interest from Style Prison up in Cheshire, and which is a women's prison, and they asked us what we were doing. By this point we were a load of people from Preston in the network, the Recovery from Addiction network that we're involved with, they were asking us if they could volunteer with us. And we had a lot of females who wanted to do something up in the female estate.
Yep.
So we started talking with the hierarchy up at Style Prison, and we got the project up and running there, which was a long drive. In the midst of all this, I got my driving licence back, and I got a little car, Clive the Clio.
Yep.
And we started driving up, rather than just walk people to a bus station or walk people to a train station.
Yep.
We had the car, we got business insurance on the car, we could start.
So you're giving people lifts, really, with
Yeah.
a bit of a taxi service as well.
Yeah, and Style stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
You know,
it is,
there's nothing there in Style. There's a shop and a pub and a prison. And that was an eye-opener for us going up there, because there's not many women in prison compared to men in this country.
Correct.
So if you're a woman and you're in prison, the likelihood is you've done something pretty wrong. And we were meeting all types of people, but because there's less female prisons, we were going to all areas of the country.
Yep.
So Style releases to Greater Manchester, it releases to Cheshire, releases to Lancashire. The longest release I think we did was up to Durham. Which
You
was
took
a
someone
hell
to
of-
Durham?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. And the girl who was volunteering with me, Stacey, that day, she'd actually done time with the girl we took up to Durham, so they knew each other anyway.
Wow.
And the girl who was volunteering with me was healthy, living a great life now.
Yeah.
And the girl in the back is asking her how she's gotten to this point. And of course, everyone looks at the car as just being a car getting A to B, but that journey in the car, talking in the car,
Yep.
it's like carpool counsel in my car, I tell you. It works.
Funnily
wonders.
enough, it's funny you should say that. It's funny. Yeah.
You know what I mean, though, don't you?
Yeah. What's amazing me, right, is, see, people probably don't realise, so that last you took to Durham, getting out of Style Prison, middle of nowhere, and having to get to Durham herself, I can imagine the anxiety or whatever, and I would imagine you will know yourself, especially people who are recovering from addiction. A lot of people won't get to the destination, do they? Or, you know.
No, and that's our job, isn't it? To make sure that on that day, the first thing we do is take people to probation, because everyone who leaves prison has to go to probation on the same day that they're released.
Yep.
And if they don't go, they can be recalled to prison that day.
Yep.
So we make sure the first thing we do is take them to probation. Then, as a little well done for going to probation, you get your bite to eat, and we take someone for some food. And then there's myriad other appointments to attend, aren't there? There's drug and alcohol appointments. A lot of people get released from prison on a prescription.
Yep.
We have to go and sort the prescription out.
Where do you sort your scripts out? Do they have like local chemists that sort them out? Or I've never thought about that.
The drug and alcohol team in every prison is meant to arrange for the outside prescription. So you get your medication on the morning.
Yep.
And then your prescription.
Did they give you meds in reception before you leave? Usually,
it depends.
Or on the wing, maybe.
Normally it's on the wing, I think.
Okay.
In Preston, it's on. You go and get them on the wing, and then you head down to reception.
Okay.
So the prescriptions are then sent out to the community drug teams.
Yep.
You go and see them, and they give you prescription to go to a chemist.
That in itself will provide a lot of anxiety, won't it? If you're on meds, you know, there's a worry you're not going to get your meds or whatever.
I mean, the problem with all of this is, so if you think that I've just mentioned probation, drug and alcohol appointments, food, clothes, prescriptions, you're assuming that all them things are going to be done properly. And all the people who make those arrangements and appointments are going to be making them in tandem.
Yeah.
They don't. So we had a woman who got released not so long ago from Style Prison, and she was going back to Liverpool. At 2 o'clock that day, she was 62, this woman, right?
62?
62-year-old. At 2 o'clock, she was meant to be at probation, her accommodation, a drug and alcohol appointment, and at the job centre for a universal credit.
Wow.
All at 2 o'clock, 62-year-old, no car, no nothing, no money.
Yep.
And all of these appointments were 5 mile away from each other, 30 mile away from the prison that she'd been released from. So what we look at as a society, I think those who sit up in the ivory towers think, oh, well, they've got this set up, they've got that set up,
Yeah.
they've got this, look, we've done this, we've done that, but they don't think about it. And people can't get to them appointments. And I'm telling you now, if you're not getting to them appointments, there's only one place you're going back to.
Yeah. Quite quickly as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
You miss a probation appointment or whatever, then you're looking at getting arrested and locked back up pretty sharpish.
Yeah, when I was in prison, that's what started this off for me. I was really fortunate at Preston. They've got a really good drug and alcohol recovery wing.
Yep.
And I was on there for about 4 months.
Did you go into prison as an addict? Were you using?
I wasn't using, I was drinking, but I was going through 2 big litre bottles of brandy a day.
For me, the alcohol, obviously, other than wing gooch, they don't provide it in prison. The alcoholics, for me, are the best people, because obviously you can die, can't you, just stopping alcohol. So you have that treatment for a week or whatever, you go through your detox 2 or 3 days, seeing spiders, hallucinating, climbing walls. The alcoholics, for me, are some of the people who leave prison way healthier, and for me, that's when you need to get hold of someone, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was fortunate. I was on that wing, and I realised myself that, you know, I'm 47-year-old. I can't carry on living like this. It's, you know, it's not.
Was prison a wake-up call for you?
My last sentence was a wake-up call, without a doubt. So I've been to prison 4 or 5 times.
Yep.
And that last sentence, I remember, because I went in, I got arrested and I was steaming drunk.
Yep.
And then got put in front of the magistrates, got remanded. And all that bit's a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm in a pad in Preston prison with this little Asian lad who wouldn't shut up. And then I went on the detox that you mentioned, the Librium detox.
Yep.
And I think I was on that for 9 days. So everything's a bit hazy and all that. I was a bit fuzzy. And then I came out of that and I felt lost for about a month. I was like, wow. And that was my...
What do you mean lost?
I didn't like lost like I've never felt lost before. I didn't know my purpose in life. I didn't want to be alive. Remorse, shame and guilt like I'd never really felt before. And I was trying because I'm naturally a positive and optimistic person, but I couldn't see any light here. I couldn't see any hope, and that's what I'd lost, hope. They picked me up, they got me on the drug and alcohol recovery wing at Preston.
Yeah.
And I figured out at that point, look, nobody's gonna make me better.
No.
I need to put everything I've got into this while I'm here, and that's what I did in prison. There's plenty of people in prison, you'll know, who go in there and have a doss about and treat it as a bit of a lie down. I knew that if I didn't want to go back, I had to do something. So I did, and I put my mind to it. But what I did notice on that recovery wing, there were lads coming and going. So I was there for like 4 months, and I saw the same lad come and go 4 times.
Yeah.
And that didn't sit right with me, that. So that's why we set Release Mates up. That's why we set the programme up that we run now. And the whole purpose of it, for us to be able to get funding for it, to expand it to other prisons, is to reduce reoffending. Because there has to be a purpose to it.
There's a cost there, isn't there? The lad who's been back 4 times in 4 months, yeah, we're not doing him any favours, are we? And there is a cost, like, to the taxpayer as well. If you say, like, I don't know, 800 at a time, 3 or 4 grand just to put him back in, and you know damn well he's coming back, it's just like dead money, isn't it? Yeah. And how many people like him did you come across?
Well, there were only 27 on that wing I was on, and there were 3 lads who came and went on two or more times.
Yeah.
So something's not working, but I think, you know, sometimes in this country we still live in a very much lock them up and throw away the key society.
We're very backwards dealing with addiction, aren't we?
Yeah, and you know, way over 99% of the people in prison in this country are going to be released at some point. There's not very many who are serving the full life tariff. So at some point, nearly all the prisoners in this country are going to be released and are going to be someone's neighbour, serve someone's food, fix someone's car. And common sense and logic says to me that we as a society should want that person to be trustworthy if they're going to be our next door neighbour.
Yep.
But instead, we seem to revel in punishment. We seem to revel in watching people suffer, which is wrong. And I think the rehabilitative purpose of prison in this country is so far behind.
You know what I say? There is no rehabilitation.
No,
People like you see something, have an idea, you want to change because you were lost. However, you know, you can speak and treat people in a proper manner, you know, and you can affect how they behave and that, but we're not actually doing anything for people on the rehabilitation front at all. It's still difficult to get employment because you've got a record. Education, right, it is important. One of lads I know, a really good lad who's in my second book, yeah, he is pursuing that, pushing education for everyone. Education is not necessarily going to help you when you get out. However, it's hard to get on in society without education, isn't it? You can't read and write properly. That side of it's difficult. But you know, like you say, you've got to want to change, but then there's no support, as you probably found out.
The one thing you've got to have above all else is hope. And if there's no hope, there's nothing, is there?
No.
So, and that's what we said, you know, that's why we set this program up, because we wanted to give people hope. We wanted to, it's not all about getting people to probation, getting them a nice breakfast or a Mackey's or all that.
No.
It's about spending a bit of time with other prison leavers who've got out and are living proof we are the hope now. People look at us and are like, people don't believe I was in prison. People get in my car, I've only been out 13, 14 months. People are like...
Still on probation?
Still on licence now, yeah.
Still on licence.
For another few months.
You're not going back, are you?
No, I've had enough. I've had enough. And it's strange now, you know, we've been back into prison since we've been running this project, and it's a strange feeling. It's a strange feeling.
Did you take any positives away from being in prison? You know, did it teach you a lesson, as it were?
I think what needed to happen was my ego needed to be deflated, and I needed to be smashed down to a pulp one last time to be able to grow again, and that's what prison did for me. Once I was at that point I was talking about before, where I felt like I didn't have any hope, I was able to grow then, and I was able to grow through maybe different eyes. And you start, you know, in prison there's not as much good as there is in the outside world.
No.
So you start...
It's a very negative place, isn't it?
But I started to look for good in people, and you know, like you said before, I've made friends in people. I stay in touch with people I was in prison with, and I think that, you know, it's taught me to embrace life a bit more, no matter what your circumstances, how tough things are. Embrace it.
If you could get in front of somebody, a panel of people who had influence or whatever, looking at addiction, short sentences, how we help people when they get out, you know, what would you say, or what would your sort of goal be?
I don't think there's any benefit in short sentences at all. I don't see the point in sending someone. I understand that there has to be a punitive element to a sentence. I understand it, I get it. Victims need to feel that the person who's committed an offence against them is punished. However, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture for society, you're locking someone away at great cost to the taxpayer I was in prison with guys who got a 5-day sentence. 5-day sentence. It's costing £5,000 to send him there.
But the thing is as well, that guy who was in for 5 days might well have had a job or whatever, and being in prison for 5 days might, you know, completely knacker that up, as it were.
It's funny you mentioned then, if you got in front of a panel of experts. When we were at Preston Prison last year, we got a referral through, and the referral wasn't for a lad being released from the prison. It was a guy who was being released who might be getting a walkout from court. So he'd been remanded at Preston Prison.
Yep.
And he had to go back to Preston Crown Court to see if he would be sentenced to further time in the prison.
Yep.
So we went to the Crown Court building in Preston. Now, he was listed for 10 o'clock in the morning. And we'd never been, you know, I didn't have a clue what we were doing. Like, I've never been that side of the court before. So we went and went in the public gallery. And this fella's barrister came up to us and, like, we introduced ourselves and said, look, this is what we do.
We're from the condom company.
Yeah, we're the rubber mates. We're here to, like, if he gets a walkout, we're going to take him. We're going to get his accommodation sorted. We'll get him to probation. This fella inevitably had to report to police station as well. So anything like that. So the barrister said, brilliant, that's great. So we went back into the public gallery. This fella, another old bloke, 67, this fella. He gets...
the Scouse is coming out now. Go on, sorry.
He gets called at 2:30 in the afternoon. And the Crown prosecutor turns around and gives his side, and he reads out all his debts, and he's like, he's done this, he's done that. He's only been in prison for 2 months. He should have an extra 4 months. And the judge turns around and goes, thank you, and then goes, Miss whatever her name was, can you persuade me why this man should not spend any more time in prison? We're sat there and we're all falling asleep. We've been in the public gallery for 4 hours, mate. I'm bored.
Yeah.
And anyway, the barrister stands up, old woman she was, stands up and she goes, well, Your Honour, I would very much like to hand that responsibility over to the 2 gentlemen who've been waiting in the public gallery. And I looked and I thought, what the f am I going to say? So the judge looks over to me and says, yes, would you like to address me? And my head's thinking, no, it's the last thing in the world I want, mate. So I stood up and I managed to tell him what we were all about.
Yep.
And he was understanding and he was worthy of it. And he got on our level, and I tried to put it across that if you give this guy more time in prison, you're only creating more problems for him. There's nothing to be gained from it. And I think eventually, if we get to, so at the moment there's talks going on for us to be doing releases from all the Lancashire prisons, so Kirkham, Wymot, Garth, Lanky Farms, as well as Preston. Yep. And if and when that happens, we might be able to start influencing things a bit better than we can at the moment. The bottom line is we do the work that many people aren't prepared to. So a lot of people out there get paid to do what we do. Yeah. But they're not prepared to walk the length and breadth of a town to get probation sorted.
Are you doing it on a voluntary?
Yeah, we don't get paid at the moment. We don't get paid. We're funded.
Yep.
But none of us get paid at the moment.
It's a noble cause. It's not something I'd have thought about before. Obviously I've seen enough lads getting out or whatever, but yeah. Can I just tell you, another lad I know, I'm going to interview him soon. When he got out of prison, same as you, he went in, didn't spend a lot of time in, got frustrated with what was on offer and that. So when he come out as a little sort of thing, he thought, right, when he went into prison, I knew nothing. So he wanted to do a leaflet drop, starting with, you know, sort of Strangeways and Forest Bank, they're close together, in Manchester Town Centre, all the courts, and put a leaflet in that was there for people who were going to court, for family members, and it was an information leaflet saying, right, you know, what you could take in with you from court, etc, etc. He was going to fund it all himself, and he got zero interest. He just gave up in the end. He tried, he went people in court, nobody were interested, not at all. And I think in general people are just apathetic, they're not. You know, if it's not involving them, then they're not. But all them little things you've done, maybe that one day, you know, bit of food, sit down, bit of a chat, you know, give them a bit of support or whatever, might keep them out or from going back, or, you know, just a bit of hope.
We're at
like
a point
you said
now where we've been doing it for around 9 months on and off.
Yep.
And you know, we had to stop at Preston for a while contract court talks were going on, and you know, as we've grown, we've had to change a little bit.
Yep.
But in all the time we've been doing it, we've seen just shy of 100 people, around 92 people we've seen.
Yep.
And I have a fair idea in my head of how many of those people have gone back to prison since we've helped them.
Yep.
And the number of people that I know of that have gone back to prison,
yep,
compared to the national average for reoffending,
is way less.
Far lower.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
And it's just that simple thing that there are, you'll know yourself, there are masses of services for people when they're getting out of prison. But if you're not going to get through that first day, you're not going to get to any of them. It's that simple.
David, I'm going to do something else with you, but amazing. I think that's a very just and worthy cause. Anyone out there, you know, wants to get on board, what I'd like to do with David at some point, I'm going to start doing lives. Listen, guys, I'm really busy at the minute, but when I start, we'll do them on the Mondays, like the Mental Health Mondays. People like David on board, you know, work together, answer your questions, and hopefully make the world a better place, eh?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do. It'd be good. Thanks so much for having us.
David, thanks for coming. Don't hold the Everton thing against him.
Or the condom thing.
David, thanks for coming. I'll see you there.
Take care.